Welcome back to another episode of the Briefcase in the Barn with me and Gary, a series of the Furiously Curious show where we talk about business, life, Christianity, and more. Show sponsor is Furiously Curious Coaching. If you're a business owner looking for a coach, want to move ahead fast, get rid of some big roadblocks, I do a 10-week coaching program, and it is lights out awesome. If you're interested in that, you can check that out at furiouslycurious.co. How's it going, Gary?
Pretty good. A little under the weather. Brought my big roll of toilet paper along here, so we have to do timeouts for our podcast for me to blow my schnauzer. But
Ram's going to be having to edit every 5 seconds.
I don't watch, so I don't know how good Ram edits. But you sent me that overtime clickbaity real thing that you shared, and I'm like, oh boy, that's cringy. But I think the people that listen to our podcast probably don't watch that. I'm guessing they just
got some feedback this week on the podcast.
Oh, I love feedback. Love listener feedback.
Hey, great podcast with Kim. Just finished it. Looking forward to the next few people you have on. Feel the Briefcase in the Barn series has got a little stale.
Okay. Boring.
Not entertaining enough.
No, you know what the problem is?
What?
This is to my shame, but if it were entertaining, it would be inappropriate. I always say, it's like somebody asks, like, hey, what do you talk about in the podcast? And like, what's your goal? And I'm like, to be entertaining, but not offensive. Slightly offensive. But
Slightly offensive.
No, I don't want to be offensive.
The gospel's offensive, so
no,
I hope
but that's not what it's about, right? Like, I know exactly who I'll be offending, and it's not great. So I am trying not to be offensive. And like Marie says, she said, you always have a filter on, and that's a good thing.
Oh, now it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because initially she told you to get rid of your filter and just be yourself.
Yeah, then I started being myself, and she's like, whoa, back the bus up. Put that guy back in the barn.
Just the briefcase.
Take the fake guy.
All polished up.
Briefcase is still, the briefcase is still in conversation. I got off the phone with a TD Bank investigator today. I think I shared in the regular story at the time what happened there, where the briefcase got stolen, and then I got it back because I paid the criminals to get it back. But the criminals ended up being real criminals, and they kept a few of the checks and put some fraudulent checks through my account in December for a fairly large amount of money. And TD told me about 2 weeks ago, they sent a letter that they were not going to refund me the money, which I found quite disturbing. I thought, what's the point of even having a check signed properly? And like worse than that, like the whole check looks fraudulent. Like it was like a nice fraudulent stamp, and it went into a Royal Bank. There's two actually. Yeah. They sent a small one through first for like $360 and then one for like 15 grand. But today, the interrogator asked me a lot of questions and just wanted to hear from my perspective what happened. And so I have a few more things I can do, but
right on.
Anyways, yeah. Today was not going to say what I was just going to say. No, I know, can't say it. Do not want that on public. No.
Brutal.
No, I know, brutal. Can't say it. No. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, who's going to listen to that?
It's
the old filter coming through.
Anything exciting happened last week?
Oh, every day is exciting.
Mark Carney, new Prime Minister of Canada.
Yeah, unelected.
Whatever.
Who cares, right? It's a dictatorship in Canada anyways.
It's so bad.
More than the U.S.
Yes.
Same idea, though.
Not the
Same
US.
idea.
Not
executive order after executive order.
Yeah, but they're pretty hard to implement. The Republican system of government, or not Republican, their system of government is way more set up. Like the president has way less power in his own country than the prime minister does in his country.
Okay. It's interesting. I'm shopping my banking business around.
Yeah.
And even just at lunch today, having a discussion with different bankers, and just a conversation around like, hey, how do you think it's going to affect your business? I mean, from the import side, bringing hay and cows in doesn't seem to have tariffs on it at this point.
Yeah.
But obviously a lot of other businesses do. And even on the real estate side or just business in general, uncertainty is not good for business. It's not good for an economy. And so people are like, oh, who's going to win the trade war? Well, like everybody's going to lose. Like that's my opinion. I mean, there's people way smarter than me, but even on social media, you see people that are, relatively, like I think very intelligent people. There's differing views and saying,
well, some
people say it's inflationary and some people say it's deflationary. And
seen Doug Ford did his 25% tariff on all electricity he was sending down to the States. He wasn't going to back down, and 4 hours later, he canceled it.
Yeah, I got a phone call from somebody in Ottawa, right? That's what happened. Yeah. Somebody in Ottawa said, whoa, you're causing problems over there on the east side of the country. Knock it off.
Yeah.
It is interesting. Like, sorry, are you getting do you get like you're close to a lot of Americans? Do you get feedback from a lot of Americans on all this banter? Like, are you dialoguing on social media?
They ask a lot of American people I talk to. They'd ask me about it, like, what do I think about what's happening with these?
As a Canadian,
and stuff like that. A lot of questions, but I mean, they're not really that affected by it themselves.
They don't
right?
care.
They don't really care. What's more interesting to me is that how many, and a guy messaged me about this as well, how many conservatives are becoming anti-Trump because of this stuff that's happening. When the real issue is not Trump, it's Canada. People, like, the corruption and the problems are from happening within Canada itself. I went to Mark Stroll's annual general meeting last week. Got elected to the board there for the local Conservative Party.
Okay. How long are you going to last on that board before they kick you off?
Probably not.
As soon as they listen to the podcast.
Well, I asked him, I said, you got to come on my podcast. I'd love to interview you. And he's like, well, I'm not sure. I have to get that
approval
to be
on the podcast.
Wow, look at that. Free speech in Canada. You can't even come on your own constituents.
Political parties hold a lot of power.
That's terrible. That's terrible.
No,
it's not good.
Man.
Not good.
No, it makes sense.
You know,
makes sense. Could you imagine if you were a politician and you were allowed to say whatever you want and go on any podcast you want?
You're elected
you put
by
the political
here in Chilliwack.
No.
You should be able to.
Some people need to have a filter put on them by other people.
You're picking bad candidates. You're picking bad. You should be able
people
to.
People are their own worst enemies, man.
If he can't go on my podcast and get interviewed
unhinged for 2 hours,
it doesn't have to be unhinged. Well, he has a brain. He knows what he should say and shouldn't say, but he's being controlled and say you can't do that. I think that's crap.
Yeah, they do a lot of message. I mean, I think Stephen Harper was a very good prime minister in many ways, but he was the beginning of the he was very controlling about what people said. It was like a few cabinet ministers and
so who are you electing? Did I elect Mark Straw or did I elect just one guy?
Yes, man. Are they yes, man? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is. Like,
yeah, they are. And there's literally a party whip. I don't know. It'd be interesting if he could come on and talk about that process, because Mark's a very nice guy and very smart guy. It'd be interesting to hear his perspective. Maybe after he's not an MP anymore, he'd come on and give.
What's interesting though, he said, like, of course the polls have changed very much in the Liberals' favor recently because of the tariff war, and we'll see how long that lasts. But he also said, he goes, it's very frustrating because the problem is within Canada. Like, the reason that Canada is not doing well economically in so many other ways is because
we have no economy.
We have no economy, and the Liberals have just scuttled this country for the last 10 years and screwed it up. And we have all our eyeballs on Trump and the U.S. because it's easy to point fingers at them, and the media does that as well because the media is all in the bag of the Liberal Party. And Mark actually said that as well. He said that, like, Mark Carney, all of a sudden Chrystia Freeland was bad and Mark Carney was good, and it was because the CBC was just pushing Mark Carney. They were basically told to push him, and he's like, but the problem's within Canada. He goes, like, there's like no more. He goes, late in 2011 they wanted to buy F-35s. 2011. And they were like, no, the Liberals killed it. No, it was so bad, whatever. 10 years later, Liberals finally bought it. There's the ports are wide open. Like, the border is open. There's no military. It's just a shit show. Like, the problem is in Canada.
Ultimately, though, I mean, Donald Trump is pandering to the base that thinks that, hey, we're going to, Canada's ripping us off, and I don't agree with that at all. I think that's a load of ridiculousness.
Yeah, I don't know enough about what's actually happening in the inner workings, because I know there's tariffs going both ways already currently.
Well, ironically, I think Canada, and people will correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think there's quite a few more tariffs that Canada's in. Like, Donald Trump threatened, Kybot walked back 95% of them because he's a bit of a windbag, and then the federal government in Canada said, we're just carrying on. You need to threaten that stuff. We're carrying on with some of them. So to what degree, I don't know, but.
No, but even before that, like, there's tariffs.
Well, there's always tariffs.
Yeah.
Of course, on some things.
Exactly. But most people wouldn't even know that, though.
Super interesting, too. So, we get made fun of going into supply management again. But, like, dairy farmers, especially right now, like, everybo's terrified. It's like, oh, he's coming after dairy. Well, I could be wrong, but I think there's even bigger tariffs going into the U.S. on milk. Like,
there is. There's 230% tariff.
Yeah, there's big tariffs on milk dairy going into the U.S. too. So everybody's protecting their own interest.
But people don't know that.
No, they don't.
And so they just go peek off
because all the free market guys are just saying, "Oh, how can we not? How can we not be protecting oil and gas, and we're protecting these few dairy farmers in Canada that are entitled?"
And China's coming in here, actually, like, buying everything up and, like, kind of actually really screwing us.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting though if you look at grain farmers across the prairies, and I don't know, you probably don't follow those type of people, but you follow people that are there's a lot of businesses that are severely affected, right? I mean, and I talked to a farmer last week. I don't know if I talked about it on last week's show, but I mean, they're all of a sudden they get a phone call overnight and their product 25% more. Now it didn't, well, that would have happened because that's coming.
Yeah.
So anyways,
I was talking to someone else last week that is affected, and their friends are being affected by the cuts of Doge, Elon Musk and Doge in the government. Like a lot of people are losing their jobs, and this person was very, very upset by it. And what was interesting was I was talking to this person about a couple of years ago. They had quit their job, very well-paying job, and started a new business. They were saying that they had to like stop eating out as much and buying all these things because they couldn't afford it. Like money in, money out, right?
Because they had started their own business.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and they didn't have like the big wage coming in anymore. I'm like, well, that's the same thing in government. Like the U.S. is paying more on interest on their debt than they are to their military, which is like $800 billion. Like you can't.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable.
No.
Like you have to do cuts that hurt before.
We do here too, and it is going to affect all of us in some ways, right? And a lot of us would say, well, we don't even have that good of services as it is. Like, try get a passport or try do something with, a federal agency. But even provincially, we're foster parents, and the feedback we're getting through the Ministry of Children and Families is cut. So I mean, the NDP obviously just got barely reelected with a majority in BC, and their finances, is public knowledge, is a total disaster, right? And it's because that's not their gifting. I mean, the NDP would not be.
They have a gifting?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I mean, they want to care well for people. I mean, I'm a socialist at heart. I just don't think government should do the socialism. I think that we as
that's
individuals,
not socialism.
Well, I think we as individuals need to care for the needy, right?
Yes,
and I think that's on us.
100% agree with
I don't think government does anything extremely well because
maybe if tax wasn't at 60% in Canada, there'd be more to go around to give to the needy.
Yeah. Anyways, a lot of debt servicing, and so we'll see.
Yeah. Anyways, we are moving on to Gentle and Lowly, the Heart of Christ for Sinners and Sufferers. Going through this book one chapter at a time.
We don't talk too long about it either. So
chapter 6.
You can. Some people just skip right ahead. If that's you, that's fine. But
yeah. I will never cast out was the title of the chapter from John 6:37. Whoever comes to me, I will never cast out. I asked Gary on the way over here, and he said, I forgot my book. I said,
I
go
always
home and
forget
get your
my
book.
Yeah.
Because he said he had a sermon ready. So preach.
No, I don't. You talk first. What stuck out to you?
Well, it was a little back and forth. So John Bunyan has a book called Come and Welcome to Jesus Christ. And he kind of references that in this chapter. So he kind of has this back and forth. And he says, no, wait, we say, cautiously approaching Jesus. You don't understand. I've really messed up in all kinds of ways. I know, he responds. You know most of it, sure. Certainly more than what others see, but there's perseverity down inside that is hidden from everyone. I know it all. Well, the thing is, it isn't just my past, it's my present too. I understand, he says, but I don't know if I can break free from this sin anytime soon. There's only one kind of person, and I'm here to help. That's the only kind of person, and I'm here to help. The burden is heavy and heavier all the time. Then let me carry it. It's too much to bear. Not for me. You don't get it. My offenses aren't directed towards others. They're against you. Then I am the most suited to forgive them. But the more of the ugliness in me you discover, the sooner you'll get fed up with me. And then it ends with, whoever comes to me, I will never cast out.
Yeah.
And I think we always have these excuses in our minds of why we shouldn't go to Christ or why we can't go to Christ. And this chapter just talks about how those objections are not valid.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of thought I'd be curious to know listeners' opinion. Like you say, he focuses on that one verse, right? I think, did you already read it? John 6, all that the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me, I will never cast out. So on the next page, yeah, it's a lot of the Bunyan quotes in the book, which is interesting. And I didn't know that until recently, that Pilgrim's Progress is the second most printed book in the history of the world, next to the Bible, which I thought that was quite interesting. But anyways, yeah. So I just thought it focuses, like one of the comments he says here, they that are coming to Jesus Christ are oftentimes heartily afraid that Jesus Christ will not receive them, right? And it's like, we've talked about it quite a bit, even through our last book, but it's just about how we always look at things through our perspective, right? And often our perspective is obviously often flawed. And so it's funny how we have like everybody has debates, discussions with themselves in their own mind, right? Like, you know, theologically, and our discussions are always based off kind of how we're taught and what we're, you know what I mean, what we believe, right? And we believe based on what we've been taught over time, right? So I just thought it's fascinating knowing a lot of the listeners that listen to this and just the perceptions that I have, even with the way, like, it's so deeply indoctrinated, right? You're deeply ingrained. Indoctrinated, it's probably a derogatory term to some degree, but really it's when you're taught something over and over at a young age, that is indoctrination, rightly or wrongly, right? So yeah, you had kind of, I don't know if you read this already, sorry, but you said fallen anxious sinners are limitless in their capacity to perceive reasons for Jesus to cast them out. We are factories of fresh resistance, right? And so often, I think my perception when I was younger was, hey, I don't think I'm meant to be a Christian. I'm not feeling it. I was often just the idea of like, hey, am I one of God's chosen ones? Or even in that I thought that way, right? Where like so sinful, so many things that I'm doing wrong. We tend, it says Bunyan understands us. He knows we tend to deflect Christ's assurances, right? And so that's why I thought even fascinating about the verse itself. Some people will focus on the front of it where it says, all that the Father gives me will come to me, right? They'll just hyper focus on that. Other people will hyper focus on, and whoever comes to me, right? And it's like, well, choose which part of a verse you want to obsess on, right? No, you read it in its entirety, right? And both things are beautiful. So another part that was interesting to me was every human friend has a limit. If we offend enough, if a relationship gets damaged enough, if we betray enough times, we are done. We are cast out. The walls go up. And with Jesus, our sins and weaknesses are the very resume items that qualify us to approach him. Nothing but coming to him is required. First conversion, and 1,000 times after, until we are finally with him to death. I had that underlined. I thought that was pretty beautiful. So that's kind of what I focused on. And then at the very end, he says, raise your objections. None can threaten. I think that's the part you read, right? And then he repeats it again. And I think that, in my mind, I guess reading this chapter, I was like, well, the only thing that really matters, have you come to Christ? And if you're listening to this and you haven't, that's really all that matters. And it matters today. And it really obviously matters, at the end of your life, right? Whenever that may be. And that could be any time. So yeah, I just think it depends on, we need to be broken. And I feel like we were never taught. I never felt like I was taught, and maybe I was, and I just wasn't listening, but like, I never felt like I was taught how to come to the Lord, right? Because there was so much emphasis put on, is he drawing you? Is it like, no, like just repent. And, there's verses in the Bible, like, help me with my unbelief, right? Like cry out to God, right? Anybody can cry out to God. There's a lot, so I just feel like some of these things were just, I don't know, maybe that wasn't your experience as much. Maybe you're in a bit more of a gospel focused, but the way I interpreted what I was taught, I felt was pretty damaging in that way, right? So I thought it was a great chapter and super encouraging. And like, yeah, the part about coming 1,000 times, that's just the Christian life, is one of repentance, right? And if we have that, kind of ties into last week's Sunday sermon about the whole pride thing, right? So
yeah.
Were you there on Sunday for the generosity?
Yeah.
What did you think of that? Did anything stand out to you?
Nothing really big stood out to me except for I just want to just continue being generous. I think what it was about greed and I think I'm a really competitive person, and I always want to like grow and be better and be the best. And I think definitely have had it with money in the past, but I actually recently was feeling it with the podcast on just like, how do I get to like 50,000 downloads? How do I grow this thing? Like, what do I all do? And instead of just being like, no, just go create good content, be faithful, like add value, and
whatever happens,
happens, and don't try to always like be pursuing like numbers and things like that. And I think I can sometimes fall into that. So I had to really check myself and be like, hey, just doesn't matter. Like God will provide. You don't need to worry about that. And he has, because he's always done that. And I've definitely had to learn that. And the numbers, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, so I published my podcast with Kim, my coach. Did you listen to that?
I have not listened to it yet.
It's really good. Anybody that's interested in coaching or my experience with coaching and how I got to where I am today, we talk about all of that. But she talks about, she asked me in there, she goes, what's your greatest piece of advice as a coach? And for me, it was honesty, like 100% honesty about what's going on in your life. Because that is like awareness is the first step to change, right? If you're not aware of something, of what things are actually at, you can actually move forward. And I came across it again this week. So I went golfing a couple times last week. And last year when I was near the end of last year when I was golfing, I was shooting like in the 80s, low 80s.
Yeah.
That was my score.
Is that a good golf score?
I'm pretty happy with it. Par is 72, so it was like 10 over par.
Okay.
And so the lower the better. If you're not familiar with golf.
The kind of games Kyle plays, the lower the better.
And then all winter long, I've been playing in the backyard, like 10, 15 minutes a day, whatever.
Breaking windows.
And
he hits the balls out in the field, then he smacks them back towards the house and wonder why he has a broken window.
That's how I broke the window.
Doesn't matter. Just anyone that would think that's a good idea. Got the IQ of a small farm animal.
So I thought going out this year, I was going to like do way better and shoot in the maybe the high 70s or right away in the 80s again, because I was hitting it really good in the backyard. But I have this app on my watch that tracks all my scores. And so I have exact data on all my rounds of golf last year and how I'm doing.
You enter it every time in your watch?
Yeah.
Okay.
And at the end of every hole, it asks you. And so my handicap was like 18 or 19, which is 18 or 19 over par. And so I thought, I'm going to be way better this year. It'll be like 7 or 8 first couple games. But I went out last week and I shot a 90 and an 89. So almost exactly what my watch was telling me what was, or like the data lines up. And it made me realize that so often in our minds, we have this idea that we're better than we actually are because of whatever circumstances. But when you actually look at the data, what's actually true was like, no, I still suck at golf. I'm still like in the high 90s, and a couple times I shot in the 81. And so now I think I'm in the 80s, whatever, because like you just grab your best number and kind of go with that.
Run with that, yeah.
And so once you're actually at reality, it's like, it's way better. But how often do we do this in other areas? Like when we think we're actually a pretty good dad. And what's actually going on is we're not, and we have this like misalignment.
Don't you think it would depend on the personality of the person? Do you think some people would tend to live in a fictitious, like, hey, I'm way worse than I am, and other people would live on the other end of the spectrum depending on their headspace?
Well, I'll deal with pride. And so either way, we have to.
Yeah, but I mean, the other side of the pride coin is the false humility.
Yeah.
Constantly looking for people to build us up by saying we're worse than we are.
That's possible. Okay. So yeah, I think that is possible.
Interesting.
So, but I think a lot of times, at least my experience is that I'll think I'm better than in an area than I actually am. But once you actually, which coaching does, is coaching allows you to see reality for what it actually is. Then you can actually do something about it and move forward.
I do experience that with people, and I think people that are pretty close to me, I always feel like I just want to stop them and say, "Whoa!" Like you know how it goes when you're close to someone and they say something, you're like, "Oh, that's not like." What are you gonna have a disagreement about something in the past that neither of us actually has concrete evidence on? So I would just be like, "Hey, in the future, you should track down what you're spending, or you should track what you like. Just write what you eat. Like literally write every last thing that goes in your pile. Like." You know what I mean? Like it's, like for me, it's a disturbing amount. Like very quickly, right?
Yeah,
or like if I would think like we'll go somewhere and be like, oh, I'll have a few chips there. Like no, I'll eat a whole bag of chips. Like easily. Like I could take my daily intake of calories and chips in less than like 20 minutes, right? So I think people, and same with spending. People are like, oh, I don't spend that much. It's like, well, the empirical data on the sheet on the statement show that you spend like a drunken sailor.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the numbers don't, that's the beauty with numbers. The numbers don't lie, right? And so.
But we don't the chapter 1.
That's why the golf thing's awesome, because you're entering it. So there's the data and then it spits out the handicap.
Exactly. But in the first book of Freedom Session, titled Facing the Truth.
Facing the Truth.
And that's really what it is, right? Like when we face the truth of what actually is going on.
It's not facing other people. It's literally ourselves having to face that actual. And that's the hardest part.
But that's when you can move forward. Because when you actually do, then you actually have like a foundation to be like, okay, now I know what I need to change. But if you think you're up here, and you're actually down here, well, then you got nothing to work on.
No.
Right? Or way less to work on, or whatever it is. And so that's the biggest thing I got out of coaching was Kim was just like, hey, buddy, this is what you're saying. This is what you're doing. I don't care, but just don't bullshit yourself. Be real.
How long has she been a coach for?
21 years.
What did she do before that?
She had her own marketing business of some sort, I believe. I can't remember exactly what it was now. We talked about it on the podcast. So
okay. Do you think? Yeah, interesting.
What?
Well, I was just gonna say, do you think that there's like a saturation of business coaches, or even recently someone approached, said, "Oh, I'm thinking of coaching." I'm like, well, I know that you do it. I mean, I guess it's not like I have a whole list of people that I know that do coaching, but there's people that do like sometimes it's simple business coaching, or you would not call yours business coaching. It would be life coaching, right?
I would call it business coaching.
You would call it business coaching.
I only want to.
I know who you're coaching, but I'm just saying it's not really about the business stuff that you're.
No, almost you're when you're dealing with the business issue, whatever it is, it always goes down to a root
Issues.
issue of something else that's generally not in the business.
Okay.
And once that gets fixed, it fixes things
A
in
lot of
all
other
other
stuff.
areas. And so you need to also talk about all the other areas to know what's going on.
Makes sense.
Like business and your personal life are
And it
wildly
involves a
intertwined.
fair amount of homework.
No, just
No.
journaling.
Journaling.
Yeah.
Okay.
50
Which is
minutes.
healthy.
Yeah, 50 minutes a day, whatever,
Yeah.
journaling. And
Being fully transparent.
you move forward.
Okay.
It's fast.
Okay.
But to your other question, is there too many coaches out there? I mean, the coaching industry is exploding because there's coaches for really specific things now, right? So you can be a coach for like a running coach. I know a guy that has a running coach. You can be a coach for, whatever, eating, all kinds of things. And so I think it's more just like, are you good at it? Kim was surprised how fast I got up and running and the amount of business I've got, but I really believe I'm really good at it. And so then you move forward quickly and can get clients. But if you are mediocre, then it's tough to get going. I know a lot of coaches that don't have work.
Sounds like real estate agents.
80-20.
80-20. 20% of the clients sell 80%. 20% of the agents sell 80% of the stuff. Yeah, it's tough right now. I went and showed a place this morning to out of town people and did a video call, and like I'm standing in this townhouse and the thing's listed at $750. It's a court ordered sale. It sold for like $920 in March of 2022, like 3 years ago. Just crushing, and it hasn't sold yet. It'll sell for somewhere. My guess is around $650 to $700, but really sad, really tough. Bad timing.
Talked to another realtor this week, and he said there's like 3,500 condos coming up in this area.
Well, the condo market is totally flooded. That's what's actually interesting.
But he said the rental rates are going to come way down now.
Yeah, rental rates will drop. There's lots of opportunity. You know what? Hard times for one person means good. There's a Dutch saying, I can't say it. Somebody else listening, there's lots of Dutch people. No, the ain't a man's, one man's bread is death is another man's bread, right? It's a Dutch saying, but it's true. Like, and it's harsh. There's lots of harsh Dutch sayings, but it's the idea of, hey, hard times for some means easier. And we've always talked about affordability, and it's exciting. And now if we get some affordability, everybody's going to be upset because they're losing the value, because we live in a housing-driven economy in Canada. It's a total disaster. Like, we need like natural resources. We need agriculture. We need manufacturing. We need to just create other businesses other than just building houses and have the value of houses go up. So I look forward to that happening under a new government in the future.
I don't know. I don't have that much hope.
Or the same government even. Who knows?
But in my second class this week of this Circle of Security parenting course that I'm doing, fascinating things I'm learning.
Okay.
But one of the things they shared this week was when your kids are out playing, it's good to just not necessarily always be engaging with them, but just to be present there. And because they will come back and check to see if they're like safe, or they'll just make eye contact, or like they just want to know that they're okay in a safe area. But you don't always have to necessarily be engaging with them. And often I've had it when the kids are out, in the backyard playing, whatever else. I'm like, oh, they're entertained now by themselves. So now I can just be on my phone.
They should be paying attention. They should be watching for golf balls.
But I can just do my own thing and stuff like that. But being present, even when not necessarily just engage with them, how important that is. I'm really enjoying it. So,
is it on all the time? It's in the Fraser Valley, or it's on Zoom?
It's on Zoom. Yeah.
Okay. So
there's in-person class and in Zoom classes.
okay.
And
We talked about this.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's put on all over.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, that's that. Anything else you want to say?
No, I could talk a lot more about what I'm doing, but I'm just in the beginning stages. Well, I'm starting a new company, right? The Rosedale Tractor Business.
Oh yeah. Okay.
We can talk about that another time.
Thanks for listening, guys. Appreciate you listening. Please share, subscribe, like, comment. We're going to head into overtime. And see you guys next week. Cheers.